Well, welcome back to the smoke-filled room, and this time we are in a pretty special location highlighting Iroquois County. We're at the fairgrounds in Iroquois County, and we've got a room full of Republicans. Let's hear from them. This is pretty special, and we're here specifically, it's thanks to Susan, of course, and her wonderful husband. We are here to highlight a part of the state that frankly gets ignored. We talked about it a little bit ago before we started recording. I love taking our smoke-filled room on the road, and we do this at least once a month to highlight the different parts of the state, because there's so many parts of the state that get ignored. And Iroquois County is frankly representative of the majority of the landmass of this state. So we're going to hear from local people about the issues that matter to them, that matter to all Illinoisans, and this is going to be a pretty special episode. So let me do some introductions. First, I want to start with Jason Bunting. I'm going to pull this up because I don't want to screw it up. The district here, the 106th District State Representative. You were also used to be a board member in Livingston County. You were or are a highway commissioner, president of the Livingston Farm Bureau, director for the Illinois Corn Growers Association, and I have a feeling this is only like half of your titles, but we're glad to have you with us this week.
Excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I've been following you guys here for a little bit over a year, and just excited to take part. Maybe just a tad bit nervous.
Well, the good news is we've got Chris here, and nobody can look as bad as Chris. So
that's
you're
good.
fine. It's already a low bar that's been set.
Of the crew, Collin, he's the one that's got me the most nervous. So we're just
there we go.
See how it plays out.
There we go. I know everybody's missing Michael, right? But we got stuck with Chris this week. We'll be okay. We've also got Mike Quinlin. I said that properly, hopefully, sir. He is set to be the next state's attorney here in Iroquois County. He's a career felony prosecutor who has tried over 100 criminal cases. That's 100 more than the Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox has done. So we're glad to have an actual prosecutor here in Iroquois County. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Glad to be here. Someone would have to show Miss Fox the way to the courtroom.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. He's already in the lead for bringing the most heat this episode. I love it. I already mentioned Susan. Susan Wynn Bence is a longtime political leader in Iroquois County. She's served on the county board here. She's been the president of the Illinois Federation of Republican Women, on the Lincoln Series Board of Governors. She was a policy advisor for Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti. She was a Trump delegate. I love the Make Our Farming, right? Farmers Great Again hats. Susan, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm nervous too.
There's no reason to be nervous.
I'm usually
you got
a big
friendly
talker.
crowd.
I know, but I know them all. I'm sorry. I'll try not to be nervous.
You're going to do well. I
Hi,
promise.
Jenny. I just saw you.
We've also got here Ashley, is it Ramos or Ramos? Let me make sure I say it right. Ramos. Ashley Ramos. She's a candidate for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District, taking on Robin Kelly. She's also a precinct committee person here in Iroquois County. Ashley, glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
And we have, as I mentioned, I like to give him grief, Chris Jackowiak. It's not an episode if I'm not teasing Chris in some way. Or you got a little love. Look at this, Chris. People like you.
You know, everyone's making fun of me that, I'm here, Michael's not here. You'd think Michael would be here for the farming episode. But of all the people who work for this company and who do this podcast, I'm the closest one. I'm an hour up 57. So it took Collin like 2.5 hours to get here, but it takes me an hour. He couldn't find his way around a country road to save his life. I actually have experience driving through the country a little bit. I know a little bit something called Will County. They have farms in Will County, buddy. So I'm glad to be here in Iroquois County, and let's get to work.
He's like a politician. Next, we're going to see him wearing a flannel shirt, just pretending to be one of you guys.
You vetoed the overalls, so
Yeah,
I
I
got
said
stuck.
no. You could thank me later. He wanted to wear overalls, and I said no, we're not doing that.
Well, Chris, when you start in one corner of Iroquois County and you drive to the other, it's almost an hour. Just saying. It's a big county.
If Collin gets lost again on the way home, he might test that theory.
We'll find out. All right, let's get into our first topic because we've got a shorter episode today since we don't want to keep our audience for too long. I want to go right to the representative, Jason, on this because one of the reasons I was really excited about this episode is, what I do for a living requires knowledge and information. And I pride myself on knowing a lot about political topics and issues, and yet I know almost nothing about the issues that farmers face in this state. I understand how important it is, but I couldn't pick out a tractor versus a combine, I'll be honest. And so being able to be here and frankly learn what are the issues that our farmers face and why, frankly, the entire state should understand what these needs are and actually care about these needs.
Well, Collin, to be completely honest with you, you are dead set in the middle of Iroquois County here, probably one of the most highest producing, most fertile grounds in Illinois. And, when I talk to my colleagues, there's about 6 or 7 of us on the Republican side that are farmers by trade. I am a 6th generation farmer, hoping to be raising that 7th generation. Part of the reason why back in February of 23, when this opening happened with the ascending of Representative Bennett to the Senate, I jumped at the opportunity for a couple different reasons. As a farmer, as a landowner, a small business owner in the state of Illinois, I'm a captured audience to what takes place in Springfield. I'm a father of 3 young children that I want to see come back to the farm. We need to make Illinois great again. We need to do the best we can to improve the economic well-being of the families that live in this state. And whether they want to know it or want to believe it or not, agriculture is the driver of this economy. I mean, how goes agriculture? So goes rural economy, the Illinois economy. So, when we talk about agricultural issues in Springfield, I start with the conversation of it's not an occupation, it's a lifestyle. I wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, I enjoy to go home. I enjoy to get my hands dirty. I love fighting for the folks of the 106th. I love representing the 108,000 folks that live in this district. But I also enjoy my time at home. I enjoy putting that crop in, watching that crop nurture, watching that crop go and harvest it in the fall. So, we do a great job of growing a good crop. We do a great job of raising livestock. The one thing that we're not good at is getting our voices heard. And I hope I do my part. There's folks like I said, on our side that are farmers by trade. We just need to push the issues, talk about agriculture because this drives the state of Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk soon about how much agriculture means to our state's economy. But just in general, some of the facts are mind-blowing. I mean, 3/4 of the land in the state is farms. People realize just how much of our state that covers. We are the top soybean producer in the country. We are the 2nd top corn producer, one of the top swine producers, horseradish, pumpkins, Christmas trees. I was looking down the list. I'm trying to do my best to learn these issues here. But you really think about just how much touches the agriculture in this economy. And talk about the needs when it comes to agriculture, but also wildlife, food access, quality and waste, energy, renewable fuels, climate, environment, so many different issues down in Springfield that our legislators are dealing with on a daily basis touch on our agricultural industry. And yet most are like me and completely, I'll be honest, dumb about the needs of our farmers and the needs of this industry. What is it that they need to know? And this I could open up to anybody. I know you've certainly spent plenty of time on the farm as well. What would you want people to know who are like me, who just know so little about communities like this? What is it we need to know?
We're vital. We're vital. These communities, Iroquois County and other counties like us, we are integral to the survival of Illinois and to the survival of the agriculture in the country because we really do. We set the bar on what that looks like. And we're seeing a loss in that. First and foremost, our farmers are aging out. That's a problem because we're not incentivizing for younger farmers. Jason's got children and we've got to hope that they're incentivized to continue their family legacy. But when you have China coming in and incentivizing land to be purchased and these kids are making more money from, allowing those lands to be purchased for things like solar farms, battery plants, things of that nature, it doesn't give them any real reason to want to continue when it's so much more lucrative. And I personally, and this is as a citizen as well as someone who's running for public office, I don't think that any foreign entity should own any land across the United States ever, let alone in my backyard. So we need to stop incentivizing the loss of our farmland, this good, wholesome agricultural, this fertile soil, to the incentives of, in my opinion, a larger entity. And that's where both the federal and the state politics comes in. We need to be advocating for our farmers and we need to be letting people know that our losses are our whole country's loss.
Well, and Ashley, what you're talking about there is a national security issue. Now, I do have a client not in the state who's a farmer, and she talks about this food insecurity that we're facing as we see fewer and fewer farmers, less farmland. This becomes a national security issue. If we can't feed our people with what we grow here, that's a significant problem. It sounds like that's what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely. This is a much bigger problem than I think most people realize, and it's something that we don't get a lot of opportunity to talk about and get people to understand that this is not a decade away problem now. It's on your doorstep problem, and not holding representatives accountable on the local, the state, the federal level for the losses that we're seeing. That accountability is going to come home, and where everyone will pay the piper for it. So.
And I think to add a little bit, Collin, to what Ashley is saying there, you get to my friends to the north, my neighbors to the north, and in the Cook and the Collier counties, they are so removed from production agriculture, they don't understand what it takes. And unfortunately, there's a lot of folks, constituents, clients, customers up there that we need to explain our livelihood. We need to explain that, I am producing your food that goes on your table, but you also need to remember I'm a father. I'm putting the same food on my table to raise my children. There's a disconnect right there because they're so removed from production agriculture. So we've got to do a better job of explaining and pushing and showing the pride in our work and the pride in what we do. I think we get that. We're going to get away from the constituents and the consumers that think their food comes from the grocery store. They need to realize that it comes from their friends and their neighbors in Southern Illinois producing an effective and efficient, a bountiful food supply for not only our families, but theirs as well.
Well, there's a program that one of the manufacturing organizations does, TMA, out of Schaumburg, where they bring legislators into manufacturing plants and show them around and teach them about the needs of manufacturers. And they did this with a Democratic lawmaker a handful of years ago. And I remember what she said. She's like, I've never seen anything like this. I didn't even realize that this was what your needs were. And then she went down to Springfield and actually voted with them on a few different bills. You're not going to change their mind on everything, but I have a feeling you go to some of these lawmakers, especially Democrats, and bring them out here to Iroquois County, bring them out here to see the farms and learn the needs of what you all face and your challenges. I'd imagine it would be eye-opening.
Yeah, and I know you've worked with Farm Bureau before, and I was a county Farm Bureau president for many years, on the board for about 2 decades, and they've got a program, Adopt a Legislator program there in Illinois Farm Bureau. So Chicago is all of the legislative that takes place down south is from Cook and the Collier counties there. So we need to bring them out. We not only need to bring them out to our districts, our farms, show them what we got going on, but we also need to know what they're dealing with day to day in their districts. So that program that Illinois Farm Bureau started a number of years ago, the Adopt a Legislator program, is a fantastic program. I've been asked to accompany counties to go up there and talk to their legislators because I'm that familiar person for them. They're going to kind of understand if I show up with them, we have conversations, they're going to understand where they're coming from. Where we're centrally located, Tasha and I are centrally located there, coming down 55. We've got an open door policy to any of my colleagues that want to come down, either on their way down to Springfield, on their way home from Springfield. If they want to swing by our farm, we've got an open gate policy. We'll talk through the issues. We'll talk to them, the good things that have taken place legislatively. We'll also talk about the bad things that have taken legislatively, because if we don't fight together, we're gonna go down together.
Well, we talk about the economy. Let's move on to that topic. The agricultural economy here is vital to the sustainability of Illinois. This is a $51 billion annual contributor to the state's economy, over 400,000 jobs. Some figures have it even closer to 500,000. This is huge. This is massive for our economy. And again, it just doesn't get exposure down in Springfield, just how huge this is for our economy. And you think beyond that, we're talking big, let's talk small. I mean, this is the food on our plates. This is what's sustaining our families. Speak a little bit about that if you could. And maybe, Susan, I'll put you on the spot here, just on how important farming and the farming, or just the agricultural economy is to our overall economy.
I don't think people realize that agriculture is the #1 employer in the state of Illinois, agricultural related jobs. So I think we need to do a better job teaching our kids about where their food comes from. I know there was a program one summer I taught in, and it was an ag teacher came in and he brought everybody Egg McMuffins from McDonald's. And they took those Egg McMuffins apart, and they learned where each of those pieces came from. And every one of them came from the farm. The wheat to make the bread, and the flour, and the eggs, and the meat, and also the transportation that it took to get it to point A to point B, and the manufacturing of the slaughtering. Of course, kids don't want to hear that. We don't name our pets around here, our animals
It
around
seems
here.
wise.
Yeah, we don't name our cows. But they were just like, really? And so those of us that were from the farm, we were flabbergasted that these young people didn't know that Egg McMuffin started out in a farm pasture or in a being
chicken
planted.
nuggets don't just
Chicken
come from
nuggets,
the
they
grocery
don't-
store?
No.
I'm learning so much today. This is
So
exciting.
Yeah,
there's something
yeah.
to what she says though that I think Mike can really speak on is that economically, when we decimate our farmland and also some of the industries that we've lost Quaker, Pepsi, there's other ones that have come out, and these are all connected to agriculture, our crime goes up. So we've seen even things that happen to farmers, like people will go and they'll take gas from their gas tank, they'll take diesel, they'll steal from the tanks that get left out in the field. People know where they are, they know where they get them from, but drugs have also become an issue. So we've become this kind of highway route, and because the laws have changed, and this is where Mike can speak to, the laws have changed, it's harder for police to stop people, to see what they're doing, what they're trafficking. So all of those things become an issue, and hitting us economically, agriculturally, crime goes up, and I'm sure that Mike could give you some statistics on that.
Well, I don't have any exact statistics other than rural properties and farms are frequently the targets of burglaries. They're out in the countryside, and individuals, both in our county and surrounding counties, that are drug addicts will come and take that fuel out of the tanks. They'll break into the house, steal what's in your bedroom dresser, and unfortunately, that is, as we've seen recently, we had a couple individuals involved in a small ring that were probably involved in a dozen or so different thefts on different farm properties here in Iroquois County, and it was 3 individuals from Kankakee County.
So one of the concerns that we've got, and we had something happen Tuesday afternoon that hit close to home here in the 106th District, the 53rd Senate District, Rhino Ag in Gibson City. Word just come out there Tuesday afternoon that they're closing their doors. We're going to lose 80 jobs. It's unfortunate to see. When you talk to the business owners, when you talk to the executives in Gibson City. I spoke with the mayor there in Gibson City, Mayor Dickey, yesterday morning after we had gotten this news out. As I said before, as the way of the ag economy goes the rural economy, and unfortunately. If you look at commodity prices right now, farmers are price takers and not price makers. So we live and die by commodity prices. It's taken a hit. Corn, soybeans, wheat has taken a major hit here. Farmers, unlike the state of Illinois, we don't spend money that we don't have. So unfortunately, Rhino Ag, that has a lineup of ag equipment, that they're not seeing the sales that they've seen in years past. Farmers need to tighten their belts. A lot of folks in Springfield could probably take a lesson or two from a few farmers on how to live within your means and live within your budget. But that hit close to home here just Tuesday afternoon. Working with folks on getting job fairs together, working with the execs there to see if we can get something into that. We're displacing 80 families. Between October here 24 to March of 25, when it's a complete closure, we've got to find a home. We've got to find a place for them 80 individuals.
And isn't this a major problem right now, which is what I read is finding and be able to afford the workers that we need in this whole industry. You're talking about not just with farmers, but truck drivers to haul the grain and people to pick up the vegetables, manage the livestock. I mean, right now there's a labor shortage within the industry is what I'm reading.
Absolutely. So 2% of the world's population is in production agriculture. But the one thing a lot of people don't realize, as a farmer, I need an equipment dealer, I need a banker, I need a fertilizer, I need a chemical, I need guys that provide livestock feed. It's a support system that Susan was talking about earlier is the major driver, keeps the economy up and rolling and moving strong. You've got to find a way to improve growth here in the state of Illinois. Agriculture is the one that can do it. We can get you through the tough times. We can tighten our belts and work through it. But in the good times, all of us are going to prosper. And that's what we need to really push out there.
Another big issue that frankly has come up in Springfield a lot in the last year and a half or so is estate tax reform. And the biggest industry that this hits are family farmers, where that death tax, as we like to call it, really hits those family farmers hard as the patriarch that everything maybe is under their name, or the matriarch. They pass away, they want to pass it down to their children, but the state of Illinois and the federal government come in and say, hey, we want a cut of that. And so there's been a movement down in Springfield to try to reform the estate tax, especially for our farmers. But what really drives me crazy is, as Jason has seen, and we've got several other legislators here in the room today, and a big shout out to Tom Bennett, who everybody loves, who's served this area for a long time and done so a great job with it. A big tactic down in Springfield is to put forward a bill, get a lot of press coverage, have everyone say, ooh, we're going to do something about this, and then just quietly let it die, or put it in a Simons committee, or maybe have one level of government, like the House, pass it, and then the Senate just sits on it so it looks like they did something. And that's the games that they're playing right now when it comes to this estate tax reform. They put several of their vulnerable Democrats on this bill: Sharon Chung, Harry Benton, Katie Stewart, 3 Democrats that are in tough re-election campaigns coming up in November. They put their names on this estate tax reform bill, made a big deal of it, let them put out mailers in their district. Oh, look, we're trying to help people, we're helping farmers, and then it just died. Nothing happened with it. I'm sure this drives you crazy down in Springfield, because this is common sense legislation that even the Sun-Times, the furthest left of the newspaper, says we need this. Everyone agrees we need to do this, and yet it goes nowhere in Springfield.
Yeah, so we've got all these lights coming down on us, so I kind of feel like I'm in the hot seat. Now you just raised my blood pressure here. So I'll tell you what, House Bill 4600 is the Family Farm Preservation Act. That's the one that you're speaking of here right now. I believe, and Kyra can help me here, I am fairly certain there was not a more bipartisan piece of legislation put together than House Bill 4600. I think there was 23, 24, 25 of us. We reached across the aisle for this. It is absolutely essential that the Illinois estate tax laws are reformed. And this was going to be a perfect example to open up that door. You know, as a farmer, as a landowner, as a person that watched my granddad and my dad and my aunts and my uncles fight tooth and nail to get what they've gathered. And then when my granddad passes away, we have to have that tough decision during the most difficult times in our family's lives on how are we going to keep this farm.
Because the state will value the land, and then you got to pay tax on the value. So it's not like you're paying tax on money or profit, which you might be paying to a small degree. It's really the value of the land. So you're sitting there going, hey, my father or grandfather has passed, and here's a big bill from the state of Illinois for the land. You don't have money sitting around for that. So your options are, do you dig into savings, do you take out a loan, or do you sell the land, and now what do you do with it? You're selling to China, you're selling to somebody who may not want to farm that land. It's a horrible situation being created by just an awful tax structure that penalizes our farmers.
So, and when you talk about the amount of revenue that the state of Illinois brings in and what this was going to do, we are talking about, it, as it was currently written, it was going to be roughly in that teens, the 12, 13, 14 million dollars. That is a decimal space move on the total revenues in this state.
And I don't want to raise your blood pressure any further, but they're
It's
willing to spend over $1 billion on non-citizens, but they won't spend, what, $15 million on our farmers?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And like I said in the intro, you know, farmers and landowners, we're captured audiences. We can't pick up our land and move. And the folks here in the 106, we realize that we border the state of Indiana. Unfortunately, we are losing businesses every single day because they're a little bit more business friendly in the state of Illinois. As a border district, we have to take close, watchful eye on that. And
how bad must it be if people want to go to Indiana? Like, how bad must it
God
be in
forbid.
Illinois if people are going across
God
the
forbid.
border to go to Indiana? Let's be real here. You talk about
I'm sorry, but my dad was a Hoosier daddy. I had a Hoosier daddy, so no.
all I know is I played basketball growing up. You can tell
Okay.
from my height, and all of our biggest rivals were in Indiana. So
Did you
I've,
wear shoes?
I've grown up hating Indiana.
Because you know they don't wear shoes in Indiana.
See, you're ripping on them,
I'm
not me.
tired. Yeah.
You said something that got me. You brought up the immigration issue, and that affects, I don't think people realize that just because Chicago gets all the notoriety for the issues that are happening, that affects all of us, not in just the tax dollars, because we're all floating the bill. The state of Illinois is floating the bill for these bad decisions that mayors and governors get to make that have absolutely nothing to do with our daily lives, but they're more than willing to spend our money, spend our future generations' money, picking up these bills. And then also, I was just in Ford County is right next door to us, and we've had discussions with them, Vermilion, Iroquois, as to what we're going to do when they start pushing the migrants to our areas where we do not have the resources, nor do we have the housing for them. We have a battery plant that's going in Manteno, which is just north of us, and they've actually created housing to bring people from China to oversee those. So we have not only illegal immigration, where now they're asking our tax dollars to float them, but now they're actually getting tax incentives to create housing to bring people from China to oversee creating a battery plant. So they're building this on the back of they're going to give us jobs. This is job creation, but those jobs aren't going to American citizens. So this whole situation with immigration and how it's being handled on a state and federal level is absolutely deplorable, and it's taking away from American citizens.
Well, another issue, and I don't know if people have a lot of thoughts on this, it just piqued my interest because I've seen this come up a couple times over the last year, is the right to repair for farm equipment. And I don't know if people have too many thoughts on this, but it just was fascinating to me because I didn't realize this, that for a lot of the equipment that farmers have, they don't actually have the right to repair that themselves. I just learned this as I was preparing for the episode, which is crazy to me. I understand it's a battle between sort of the manufacturers of that equipment, which are based in Illinois, John Deere and some others, and they've got to make.
They're moving to Mexico.
Well, there you go. It's not as much based in Illinois anymore. But I understand that a big portion of their profits now is coming from repairing this equipment. But the idea that these farmers would spend significant amounts of money on this equipment and then not even have the right to repair it themselves, they have to call the original manufacturer in to fix what could be just a $5 faulty sensor, just blew my mind. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this, but I figure I'll open it up for discussion.
Jason and I were just talking about this, and I think it all has to do with greed from the manufacturers. So the example is if I bought a combine from John Deere and it's all that electrical computerized stuff in there, something goes out and all of a sudden my combine stops. I cannot fix it. I don't have the right to fix it. So I have to call John Deere. They have to send out a technician to plug in, to find out the diagnosis, what's wrong with it, and then they'll probably change a fuse or something. But in the meantime, I'm sitting and my corn's not getting picked. So what do I do? Because we all know weather is a huge issue when it's time to harvest. So I believe it's greed, and I know that Jill Tracy has put some legislation in to help that, but
It's Senate Bill 2669, but yeah, it got shoved into Assignments Committee. It's not coming out. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something worth discussing. I mean, again, common sense should rule the day. I think our representative would tell us Springfield common sense is frankly a foreign concept. But this really seems like a common sense thing to me. I don't want to put you on the spot on it, but it just seems crazy that, I mean, if you buy the equipment, you should at least have some right to making sure that equipment still works, especially when days or weeks could be killer for a family farm. You lose a day or a week, the weather gets bad, that might be the end of your entire crop for that year.
Well, in total transparency, Collin, I'll tell you, I am one of them that I don't have a whole lot of that new technology on our farms, but there's like I said, you've got to find the common sense. In the middle, you need to work and find a way that we can all get along and get it figured out. But when it comes to the right to repair, just at least diagnose my problem, tell me what I need to do, let me get it done, and then get the professionals out to fix it and get it rolling on a rain day. You hate to see a neighbor when the weather's beautiful and they're not able to do anything because they've got a glitch in their technology. So, and everybody is out there doing it at the same time. So all the equipment is getting running. All the techs are running crazy trying to keep all the equipment running. They're doing the best that they can. Just diagnose the problem. Keep me moving. On a rain day, come on back. Let's work it together.
Well, especially when right now I read that the cost of parts and labor for farm equipment is up 41% since 2020. I mean, I don't know how farmers keep up. That's a massive increase in just 3 years.
Absolutely, and it's just one of them that it kind of affects your bottom dollar a little bit every time. And when it comes to the employees, when it comes to your workers, and it comes to the equipment costs, things get a little bit crazy in the short order.
Mike, I want to go to you. We're going to go on to more central Illinois topics. We've talked a lot about farming, but that's obviously not the only thing happening here in Iroquois County. When we hear about crime, we always hear about Cook County and Chicago. But I want to go to you, obviously, as you're going to be the top prosecutor here in the county. This crime that we're seeing as a result of the Safety Act and other far left progressive policies that are being pushed in the state of Illinois are impacting counties like Iroquois County. And I'd love to get your thoughts.
Well, the Safety Act's impacting every county, unfortunately. We were handed a 5-alarm dumpster fire by the legislature, and every year we have more and more tools taken away. The pendulum is just swinging so far in the other direction. One of the other reforms that passed recently was, it used to be if you were on bond for a felony and you committed a subsequent felony, then the second felony was mandatory consecutive if you went to prison. And now that's one of the changes that the same people that pushed the Safety Act have made. Now it's permissive. It can be concurrent. So instead of going from mandatory consecutive, it's now discretionary, and they can all run together. And unfortunately, we see it here in Iroquois County. We have almost on a daily basis, if we have a court call, people simply not coming to court. And under the Safety Act, we send them a second piece of paper in the mail that says, this is a summons, please come to this next court date. When they don't, eventually they'll get picked up on a warrant, but then they're usually released. And at a certain point, you can file a petition for sanctions. One of the remedies that's available is the judge can admonish the defendant about the importance of showing up in court, even though at that point they probably missed 2 or 3 dates. The harshest penalty is that they can be sentenced up to 30 days in jail.
I would imagine when you hear about, we talked about this maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe Chris, the bill that was being pushed down in Springfield to make all sentences only served at 50%. So a lot of people don't realize this, that based on the level of your crime and your sentence, you might serve 50%, or I think it's 75 or 90. The worst crimes like murder, rape, child endangerment, I think are under that 90%. But there's a bill in Springfield being pushed by these far left politicians that would just classify everything under that 50%, which means if you're in prison right now for something like murder and they pass this bill, if you pass that 50% mark, you're out back on the streets. I mean, this is a constant attempt by the left. It's way further than just the Safety Act. This is a constant effort by Pritzker and all these far left politicians to put criminals back on the streets, and the needs of victims completely are ignored.
Correct. As it stands now, murder is 100%. There is no good time credit on that. Crimes of violence and sexual assault are 85%. Higher level drug offenses are 75%, and then most everything else is 50%. I'm not surprised that there's a bill that the same people that push the Fairness Act down everyone's throats now want to make all crimes 50% sentences. Yet another tool being taken away. It'll just ensure that people that commit serious crimes can get out of prison even quicker so they can get right back to the streets, and hopefully they all parole out to Chicago, or a good number of them.
But I think, as you said, with the major highways coming through your county, a lot of times this crime's coming here. Even if it's Cook County, even if it's Chicago, Iroquois County is not immune to these problems, even if it is from up by us.
Oh, absolutely not. Those are statewide laws. They apply in every one of the 102 counties, and it's just moving it over to make it a more criminal-friendly environment. And I imagine there's other bills that their scientists are currently working on that will even, if we think that's bad now, just wait till what comes in the next couple of years or two. We'll get to a point where everything but murder, it'll be probationable.
I mean, it seems like, and that's why I always push people to look past even just the Safety Act, because that was just one or multiple pieces, but one group of legislation. They have a whole agenda here. It's way more than just the Safety Act. And clearly, as we see that agenda take hold in Chicago, as we see it take hold in Cook County, it doesn't work. Chris and I have had a front row seat to how this pro-crime agenda has failed miserably. But what I just think is crazy hypocrisy, and I'll let you speak to this, is Yet we have the week of the DNC in town, and so Kim Foxx says, for 1 week only, I'll do my job and we'll actually prosecute criminals. So they'll do it when the world stage is here, when all the cameras are here, but for the rest of the year, we're just put criminals right back on the streets.
Yeah, for this week, Chicago might be the safest city in America, which is, I'm eating crow for a lot of reasons in regard to the DNC, but in any case, it seems like that the Chicago politicians are finally taking the initiative to beautify Chicago. The crime's off the streets. They cleaned up all the L cars, the CTA and all of that. It looks spotless. But if you go to any other part of Chicago, any other week during the year, it's a war zone over there. You can't go to 63rd and Orion without feeling, unsafe for your life in the city of Chicago, even downtown the city of Chicago. But because the DNC's in town, now there's a large police presence, people are actually getting arrested, people are actually being prosecuted for their crimes. It's pure hypocrisy by the parts of those in power in the city of Chicago. Hopefully things are going to change a little bit from the prosecution sense in Cook County and the near months here, but it's terrible. We've lived under Kim Foxx for 7.5 years now, and people just not gone to prison. But now, because the Democratic Party decided they're having their big party in the city of Chicago, now people actually get to go to jail.
And by the way, I'll admit just right now, just once, how little of a life I have. So once I put my boy to bed, I nerd out on politics. And I am so pathetic in my love of politics that I read the whole Democratic Party platform. It's like 100 pages long. And I read the thing. And so one of many things that stood out to me is in their platform, they actually take credit for putting more cops on the streets. They literally list in their platform that they increased funding for police and they've put more cops out on the streets. That's what they've written. If you have to, they talk like Republicans and yet they act like these far left crazy progressives. But when the cameras are on, just like as you said, this week in the DNC, they act like Republicans suddenly.
That's the great thing about politics, Collin. You can just lie. That's what Democrats have been doing for all this time. They've just been lying. It's like, all right, we cut your taxes. Yeah, we put more police on the street. And the sad thing is that about 50% of the voters are going to believe it.
So I was there. This is a really hot button issue for me. I was there in 2020 during the riots. I watched it happen in Chicago and across the country. I was at almost every major riot across the country. And the fact that any Democrat would try to take credit for any form of police presence is absolutely enraging and disgusting to me. What happened to our police in Chicago, I watched an officer get hit with a frozen can of vegetables and he cannot see out of one eye. The Democrats have done nothing for the police in Chicago. They've done nothing for the safety of our state. And the Democratic Party as a whole is solely, I bear at the feet of responsibility for our lack of police support across the country and the uptick in crime. So to anybody who's here, I will stand 10 toes on that line with our first responders, with our police, and the Democratic deserves no credit for that as a party. Sorry.
The most frustrating part of this whole scenario is they will tell you and they will preach crime is down. Well, when you don't pursue criminals, of course, crime is going to be down. But it's a beautiful soundbite. It's that 3 second, 4 second, 5 second soundbite that sounds great. Dig into the weeds. You'll see why crime is down because they're not going after them.
It's like how Biden and Harris are taking credit for all the jobs coming back. They don't talk about how those jobs disappeared because they made us all stay home during COVID and they didn't let us go to our jobs, so businesses had to close their doors. That's the rest of the story they don't tend to tell. If you don't actually prosecute crime, then of course you could say crime is down. It's a great point you made. Any other thoughts on crime before we continue on? Maybe pass it to our future state's attorney to close us out on this topic.
I would just note that the people that are arrested during this week, the DNC is in Chicago. Follow up on those arrests and see if those prosecutions aren't dismissed 3 or 4 months down the road.
Probably putting a lot of stress on cashless bail up there, aren't they, right now?
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. We'll have to follow up next week and just see how many of these are still actually going to be prosecuted once the cameras are all out of town.
A couple of months, whatever was filed will probably be dismissed.
Yeah, fair point. All right, let's keep going. Susan, I wanted to go to you. You wanted to talk about the opioid crisis. This is something that you've been passionate about, that you've been in the front lines for, and we don't hear enough about this. throughout Illinois. We've got an opioid crisis, we've got a fentanyl crisis, and it tends to hit us hardest even in some of our rural communities, and yet it's frankly ignored by a lot of our elected officials. So I'd love for you to shine a light on this.
Well, in our small area, our small community, let me back up a little bit. It wasn't until I lost my third cousin, a family member, to opioid overdose or opioid-related death, I decided, we needed to do something about it. So when I was working for Evelyn, I went to her and I'm like, what can we do for the state of Illinois? So we put together legislation. We started an Illinois task force. We went to all 102 counties to hear all of the testimonies from people that have lost family members due to the opioid crisis. And it was very interesting what I learned. It wasn't necessarily, people aren't just going out and say, hey, let me try heroin, I want to get hooked. A lot of it started with...
That might be the title of this episode. Hey, I want to try heroin.
I don't want to try it though. But because it's cheaper and they get high faster, we learned that too. So with the opioid crisis, a lot of people, it goes back to pharma and physicians that were overprescribing medications. People would get addicted. They might have had a football injury. They may have, had a back injury. They go to the hospital in the emergency room. They come home with, 3 months of oxycodone, and then all of a sudden they're addicted to it and they can't get any more. So the administration worked on that also with the PMP, the Prescription Monitoring Program. So where you can go to a doctor, say in Crescent City, they're going to prescribe you an amphetamine, and then a lot of people were doctor hopping, going over to Indiana to get the same thing, and then they would go up to Chicago and say, I have this problem, I need this. So with the Prescription Monitoring Program, you can no longer do that, and every state is on board with that now. Missouri was the last one. It was tough, but we got them on. So I had all of that in my back of my mind when I came home after leaving the administration. And when my husband, we were pulling the U-Haul home to move my stuff home from the little apartment, and I looked back behind one of our businesses, and I'm like, what is that? Because I had only been home on weekends, and on weekends I would do my laundry, visit family, that kind of thing. So there was a little tent city back there. So I thought, I'm going to go back there and check it out. Well, it was a lot of people that were addicted to opioids or some other type of drug, and they were basically homeless. And I'm like, we're not going to have this in our community. I just went to all 102 counties in Illinois, and I was bragging that we didn't have this problem here. So found out real quick that, yes, we had that problem here in Iroquois County. So we got together a group of people, our state's attorney, I think I saw him leave, our state's attorney, our sheriff, I went to all of the department heads. We got together and we formed a plan. What can we do? Because we all know we can't, a lot of people think you can arrest your way out of the problem, but you can't arrest your way out of addiction. So we put together a task force, a coalition. I have stepped away from that, and our sheriff is now leading the way. Thank you, Clint. And we are doing some great things in Iroquois County. The problem is not fixed, but there are resources. We didn't have education. People didn't know that I could get addicted when the doctor gave me this pain medicine for my replacement hip. But you can, especially, if you have those neurons and, you have it come from addicted family. So I always refuse them because obviously I come from a very high addicted family and I don't want to have that issue. So we put all this together. We wrote some grants in partnership with Gibson Area Hospital, got what we bragged about, the $1 million opioid grant. So that helped pay for doctors, physicians, physician assistants to go become certified to be able to prescribe Suboxone or buprenorphine, which is a drug that helps relieve the pressures of detox. And in the meantime, we wrote a few other little grants, and for us in Iroquois County that we're very proud of, is an MAR grant, which is medical assisted recovery. So now if someone, although the Safety Act is putting a pinch on it, if someone is arrested and they go, they're booked into our jail and they are coming in high on something, they can be given a Suboxone, which helps the detox, keeps them from throwing up and going through all of the bad stuff. It also helps the staff at the jail not have to clean all that stuff up. So we liked it. So I think it was going along very, very successful. Iroquois County, we were a model county because we were some of the first to get into it. I think Grundy County's on board now. Like I said, I'm out of it, and our sheriff has taken over completely and doing a great job. And hopefully it'll continue. I still look around for grants, but that's another thing. You know, the Democrats are going to help do all this stuff, right? But President Trump had all kinds of grants and programs set up for addiction. And soon as the Biden administration took over, it all went away. So, you know, the resources financially aren't out there like they were. And that's why I'm looking forward to Vice President Bence, who has addiction issues in his family. So hopefully we can educate our communities a little more, especially our rural communities, that addiction it's a problem, but you cannot arrest your way out of it.
Well, you certainly see at the federal level, there's not as much of an emphasis on this as there should be. We see it in the state level. You know, again, I'm a broken record on this, but we can spend so much money on non-citizens, and yet we're one of the worst states in the country on funding for addictions, funding for mental health challenges. I think we're worst in the country when it comes to mental health funding. These are the things we should be spending our resources on, helping those who are most in need in our communities, especially when you have a Democratic Party under Pritzker that claims they're for the people who need help. They say they're there to help the people in the state who need help the most, and yet we see time after time that actually isn't the case.
Right, and we don't have the resources. When somebody is addicted and they're ready to go for treatment, you got to go now. You can't put them on a waiting list for 3 weeks from now because they're going to use and they're not going to want to go by then. So my dream is to have some kind of a detox facility, a residential treatment facility right here in our county someday, hopefully. But so we can take care of our own, so they don't have to go to a big city to get through recovery. Because after you get through recovery, you're coming back home to the same friends, the same family, and they need to learn how to deal with that as well.
Fair.
So
This opioid pandemic, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that was an urban issue, and now it's an us issue. It's found its way down. It's a major, major concern. A lot of our friends and families and our loved ones are affected by this. And the sooner that we can get a stop to this, the sooner that we can get them help, the sooner that we can move forward on their lives. So it's an us issue.
This is absolutely in our backyard here. It's heck, it's up in my backyard, up in the suburbs, and it just does not get the focus it needs to.
we even had a speaker come into one of our coalition meetings from the U of I to talk about farmers in relation to addiction, because people aren't going to say, oh, you know, I'm addicted, I need help. So, you know, family members have to recognize those symptoms and slowly try to guide them to get help. But we have probably a lot of folks that could really use some help here in our
Chris, I know
area.
you were looking to jump in.
Yeah, Susan brought up a great point earlier regarding the pharmaceutical companies. That's where I think from a political perspective, a lot of this messaging can be done by the Republican Party, is that you do have these pharmaceutical companies who profit off of people's addiction. And they overprescribe people these pills and they get them hooked on them. And then they develop this market, and even in the black market for them. And it's at the end of the day, it's all these big pharmaceutical corporations who are profiting off of other people's addictions. Republicans need to be more comfortable talking about this. I think there's always Republicans always are very hesitant to kind of talk down on, corporations and, profit and things like that. But I think this is something that's affecting a lot of people, and nobody likes the healthcare companies. Not a single person in this country likes their healthcare insurance or likes the healthcare company. So I think it's time for the Republicans to start talking about this issue in this light and actually start holding people's feet to the fire. I'm glad to see that there's been some legislation passed in regards to prescription tracking and the like. That's a very good start. We need to keep pushing similar things because we got to start, holding these corporations to the fire.
So moving to our next topic, just asking you all here, with your experience, is a rural Democrat just not a possibility anymore? As the Democratic Party in the state goes further and further and further left, this far left progressive party that Democrats have become, we're seeing fewer and fewer rural Democrats even exist, let alone to vote, but certainly elected in office.
We
Is
have
this something
two
you
or
guys are
three of
seeing?
them.
Yeah, there's a couple.
There's two or three. They had a little booth at the fair, and there was two of them there, and I asked them where the other one was, but sorry.
So it's just not a common thing. I mean, Chris, what are you seeing?
Well, the thing is, Collin, that we actually do have rural Democrat elected officials, but it's because of gerrymandering more than anything. We currently are sitting in Robin Kelly's district, and maybe Ashley could talk about this a little bit better, but we're in Robin Kelly's district, which starts at the Museum of Science and Industry and goes all the way down to Danville. You have Jonathan Jackson, who goes from the South Loop all the way down to Bradley Bourbonnais. You have rural Democrats. They're just fish out of water in their constituencies. But that's a gerrymandering problem. The other problem with rural Democrats are, part of it's, the party shift. Rural voters are moving more to the Republican Party and have voted Republicans in even against more conservative Democrats. The other part of this is that, former Congressman Glenn Pashard from downstate has brought up, is that the Democrats aren't willing to moderate their stance to appeal to rural voters. There was a state central committee meeting of the Democratic Party in Illinois a few months ago, and Pashard's talking about, what are we doing? I can't win races down in Southern Illinois with this type of messaging. Trump's going to win this election, guys, if we don't moderate our stance, and nobody listened to him. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party, and they don't want to listen to rural people. They don't want to moderate their stance to appeal to rural voters and to listen to their concerns. Their concern is with a select few groups of people, and that's all they're ever going to care about. Unless you're on board with that, they don't want your vote even. So I think that's the biggest problem for why there's no more rural Democrats. They just can't find a way to appeal to these people anymore.
That's why I'm voting for the felon and the hillbilly.
So I think Representative District 76 is a perfect example of it.
Yeah, Lance Yednock.
Lance Yednock is a perfect example of that. He said, and I mean, he made it abundantly clear, the Democrat Party, there's not a home for him in there. I mean, that's an opportunity for us Republicans to pick up a seat there, because the one that's running on the Democrat side is fairly leftist. And we've got that more moderate there, and we're going to miss Lance. We're truly going to miss Lance, because he was one that we could talk to and voice some reason across the aisle, and we're going to lose that person here. Hopefully we can gain it on the Republican side, but help us if we don't, because it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley, I'm sure you're seeing this too, right? Sure, there's those Chicago representatives like Robin Kelly who pretend to represent these rural communities, but in reality, the Democratic Party does not represent the values of Iroquois County.
No, so first and foremost, Robin Kelly's not from here. She's actually from New York. The only reason that she has this seat is because one of the Jacksons went to jail. So they put her in because he went to prison. So the Democratic Party, what that party has become does not resonate rurally. And I would like to point out too that as a whole, the party, their messaging to kind of bring people in has been this whole idea of be part of something bigger than yourself, stand for something bigger than yourself. Well, the only reason that these people are lost enough to believe that is because the bigger thing that they're missing, in my opinion, is God. He is the bigger picture. He is the foundation of our constitutional republic. It's the foundation of who we are as a country. And when you lose your moral foundation and you lose the fabric of the thing that made you feel like you were part of a community, you will seek other things, and those lies will start to sound like truths. So that's what the Democratic Party is. They have literally bespoken lies and manipulation to people for so long that they got an entire generation to start believing it. So we really need to, as Republicans, in my opinion, start being more vocal about standing up for common sense, morality, prevention more than anything else. We talked about the abortion truck, and I was absolutely appalled. And like Jason, I questioned whether it was real. Would you really put an abortion and vasectomy truck at a political event like that? And then when I found out it was true, I thought to myself, how anti-human is that? But if you use the word anti-human, people can't put the connection. Well, that's what they've done, is they've created this idea that you can be against all of the things that really make us a human community that we bond together with, and they've decimated those things. So as Republicans, I think that standing on the foundation of being, true moral value community Americans is something that people will start to gravitate to as the foundations of the Democratic Party start to crumble, because they're killing the next generation of Democrats. The people who are voting for them, who are going to use these vasectomy and abortion, products, that is your next generation of voters. How sad is that that's how we have to see those things. It's terrible. So I think people will start gravitating naturally back to Republican values.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to see. We're almost out of time. There's a couple topics I want to make sure we get to. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about, let me start over here. A subscription service that our company puts out called EmpowerToWin once a month does a poll throughout the state of Illinois, testing things like what's the top issue, how do you message those issues. In the past couple of months, we've done message testing on what's the best way to talk to swing voters and Democrats on abortion. How do you talk about Trump and win their support? We've covered a lot of these things. Once a quarter, we do a poll where we ask Illinoisans, what's your top issue? And usually only our subscribers get that polling data. But for you all here today and for those who are watching our podcast, you're going to get the top lines of the main question we ask for free, which is, what's the top issue to Illinois voters right now? Lane's going to bring it up on screen and post for those of us who are here in person. Number one issue in Illinois right now is the economy. It has not been number one the last couple quarters. As a matter of fact, immigration has been really high. Threats to democracy has been really high. But just this quarter, for the first time, the economy has taken the top spot. And there's a reason for that. People are very, very nervous about this economy. You can see even just in the jobs data, it was reported this week that the U.S. economy added 818,000 fewer jobs than what was reported over the last year. They screwed up the reports. Of course, I'm sure that was on accident to make Biden look better. But actually, we created almost 1 million fewer jobs than what they said. People are very nervous about the economy, and it's now the top issue on the minds of Illinois voters. Curious what you guys think about that. As we go into November, people are really nervous about the economy and their pocketbooks.
The ghost jobs. The ghost jobs that disappeared. This is going to be huge. And that's not just even economical numbers. We're going to see that in the resources available. So, we've got only so much resource that we can give on a private level when it comes to churches and small foundations. Then you have larger organizations. But when you have an influx of immigration, people losing their jobs, or the jobs that we have disappearing, or the amounts that we're being paid not being able to keep up with mass inflation, you're going to see people seeking out those resources and they won't be there. So we really have to look on a local and on a federal level as to how we are going to restabilize an entire economy and keep people from losing what they've worked so hard to attain.
My credit card bills are due on the 1st and the 8th of every month. The grocery bill in the last 18 months has gone through the absolute roof. It is, and to be honest, folks, we raise our protein on the farm. All of our meat is raised on the farm, so we don't have that added cost when T goes to the grocery store or to Walmart pickup. Just tracking that and following that on our credit card bills, it's almost sickening. And I truly, truly feel for the 80 families in the Gibson City area that are losing their jobs in the next 6 months. You can't make ends meet now. If you take one of them salaries of that working family off of the table, if they don't find gainful employment fairly quickly, it's bad news. And I'm happy to hear that the economy is the number one issue. And that right there in itself is something that the Republicans can run on, not only at the state, not only in this county, but in this nation, saying, you are not better off now than you were 3 years ago. It's time to right the ship, turn it around, and vote Republican.
Well, to that point, there was an ABC News poll that found Trump is leading by 9 points in trust to handle the economy and inflation. So Americans are absolutely in agreement that if economy is the top issue in this election, then they're voting Republican. And I think that's the point. And I look at this poll, Lane will bring it back up on screen again. Economy was number 1, inflation was number 3, healthcare number 5, taxes number 11. You add all that up, that's all cost of living. That is all, and what we saw in that poll was all voters said that it is too expensive to live in the state. When I say all voters, even a majority of Democrats admitted it's too expensive to live in Illinois right now, is what our poll found. I mean, cost of living is absolutely the number one issue. And what polling has shown us is if voters are thinking about cost of living and the economy, they will vote Republican come November.
And that's the one unfortunate thing for me. I've got 78 colleagues can vote a pay raise in anytime that they want. So that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think the question going into November this year is, are voters more concerned about the economy, or are they more concerned about something else? 'Cause what you just
If it's all about Orange Man bad,
right? If it's Orange Man bad and the women want their abortions, then the Republicans will not win this race. If it is about the economy and it is about taking this country back, then of course the Republicans are going to win. But it really just is coming down to every election's a messaging battle, every election's a turnout battle. Right now, frankly, the Democrats are winning the messaging battle to some extent, because there's a lot of voters who are moving back to the Harris-Walz ticket only because Biden is not the nominee in the Democratic Party anymore. Over time, that will change, or at least it should change, with proper messaging and proper counterattacks from the Republican Party. But the Republican Party needs to put out this message that the economy is in a very, very precarious situation right now. And we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, when it comes to the stock market or anything else going on in this country right now. And the Republicans need to present a message of, we cannot afford 4 more years of Democratic control over this nation's economy, because we might be facing down something worse than we've ever seen before, and most people in this country aren't prepared for that reality.
Yeah, and frankly, I mean, forget all the high-priced consultants that I'm sure Trump's team is paying. They should just pay you, because I could go with that line for the next 3 months. We can't afford 4 more years of Kamala Harris and her agenda. Frankly, that's better than what they've been talking about for the last few weeks. They're scrambling right now. They are struggling as Harris is rising in the polls. Democrats have all the momentum, I'm sorry to say. Hopefully that will change. I know Trump and his team are working at it. I know you all Republicans are working at it. Right now, we need to turn this ship around, because November is coming fast.
Well,
and if we get voters thinking about the economy and thinking about their pocketbooks, they will come back home and vote Republican. But right now, they're kind of caught up in this sort of the joy of Harris and Walz.
Biden's gone, guys. Yay! That's all I
And
want.
we're running out of time to turn this ship around.
If you would have told me back on the 1st of August that in the next 3 weeks, Kamala Harris is going to have the best 3 weeks of her political career, I would have told you you're nuts. And if you were going to tell me that Trump is going to have his worst 3 weeks in the next 3 weeks, I would have said you're nuts. But this is kind of where we're at. And the minute that she gets out after this convention and actually talks to people and has press conferences, I hope things turn around a little bit. Right now, she's the shiny new object because it's not Biden. I think the minute she gets home from Chicago, actually gets held to her issues and her concerns and where she stands and how she talks, I'm hoping things turn around, because the faith of this nation is accompanied by it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are out of time. I want all of you to know we actually had probably about 90 more minutes of stuff on the convention that we wanted to cover, but we were told very seriously to make sure we don't go over time. And so I don't want the cowbell to be rung on me. So we're probably going to do a special episode maybe next week, because we got a lot of convention topics to talk about the DNC. So we don't have time to do that today. But there's 2 things we do on every episode that we got to do as we close down. First thing is this. We always do what we call our OG and Clown of the Week. That OG, that's a millennial term, original gangster. That's someone who did something pretty awesome this last week who deserves praise. And then Clown of the Week, that doesn't have to be explained. Someone who deserves scorn from the last week. So anybody who has nominations from this last week in politics, Illinois politics, national politics, throw them out there. What do you got?
Well, my OG, what was it?
OG, you got it? Yeah.
That's like the cool thing?
Yeah, OG, yeah.
Mike Lindell went incognito. I can't wait to read the article. It just came through on my watch. Went incognito to the Democratic convention. He shaved off his mustache and nobody knew who he was. So I think that is like an OG thing, Mike
Undercover journalism.
Lindell.
Undercover
journalism.
Not like we can expect the media to do that. So,
I know,
yeah.
undercover. Get it under covers. He's got his covers and his
I
sheets.
don't know if I'll recognize him without a stash.
Yeah, I know. So I can't wait to read that article. I think the Illinois Review just it just came through. Did you see me looking at my watch going,
Who else? I saw somebody. Yeah, go ahead.
The clown of the week and probably the year is Tiffany Henyard.
No,
From
that is
Dodo.
guaranteed.
Yes, and for those of you, because what she's done affects our tax dollars. Google Tiffany Henyard. You won't be disappointed. Probably a little disgusted, but she's definitely entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah, this is for sure. We talked about how she should absolutely have her own reality show. The problem is I don't want to give her that kind of press.
Collin, she has a podcast. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
I was on the phone with somebody today, and he told me that she has a podcast. We have competition. If that's the reason we're not getting thousands of views every week, is all of the Illinois politicos are tuning into the Tiffany Henyard Super Mayor
Sheesh.
podcast.
Chris, have you been invited onto it yet?
No, but now that I know about it, I'm going to make my number one goal to get invited on the Tiffany Henyard podcast.
Tiffany, invite him on.
Invite me
I know you're
on,
watching
Tiffany. Let's
this.
have a conversation. Let's talk.
This is totally not political, but I think my OG is Caleb Williams.
There you go.
I'm telling you what, it's pretty
I
exciting.
mean, I heard the
pretty
Cubs fan up here
exciting.
talking earlier. I'm a White Sox fan. The plates are out
We're sorry.
there. So yeah. But we could talk. We could all get on board with the Bears. Maybe having a decent season.
Everybody's going to get on board, right, Chris, with the Bears?
Yeah.
Go Pack Go, baby. Caleb Williams has not played one regular season snap of NFL football. Are we in Colts country at this point? Like, where we're at?
Just my husband, wherever he's
Got
at.
a
There we
Colts
go.
fan over here. All
I'll
right.
respect the Colts. I'll respect the Colts.
Anyone else have a? So I got a couple. I'll throw out an OG of the week. So this is on a sadder note, but he deserves to be called out. Adam Andrzejewski, CEO of Open the Books. One of the most down-to-earth and nicest human beings you've ever met. And here's what I love about Adam. So he passed away this week, and I want to give him my OG nomination simply because what I love is people who run for office. So he ran for governor, didn't win, and he said, you know what? I don't need your permission to go do something great for the people. And so he opened up this company where he holds governments accountable at every level across the country, shines a spotlight on wasteful spending. Check it out, Open the Books. I think it's openthebooks.com if I remember correctly. Adam Andrzejewski passed away, but I just love people like that who say, I don't need your permission to go out there and do something good for my country and for my state. So Adam, to your family, certainly sorry for your loss, but I wanted to give you some praise for the hard work that Adam did in his lifetime.
I think he was a keynote speaker here
Yes.
a couple winters ago here
Last
for the
winter.
Iroquois County
Last winter,
Republicans.
he was our Lincoln Day speaker. And he's also been here. Barb Awful passed away this past year, too, and she had him to a couple events as well. And if I remember right, because I voted for Adam for governor, because I vote for the smart people.
There you go.
He won Iroquois County. Don't quote me on that, but I think he may have won Iroquois County. We always vote for the smart people.
There you go. Well, I'd have no hope here, huh?
Well, Chris, no, just kidding.
No chance. I'd have no chance in this county.
I'm curious if anyone, as we close this down on Clowns of the Week, this is Thursday night as we're recording this. Obviously, Harris will be giving her speech, but I heard a former Republican Congressman, Adam Kinzinger, is going to be speaking at the Democratic convention in favor of Harris. I think that deserves a Clown of the Week nomination.
That's right. That's right.
There we go. We got somebody holding up a sign. There we go. Perfect.
The sign says, I'll hold the sign up so I can read it. The sign says, Kinzinger supported impeachment in 2020 rigged election, #Rhino. That's what I love about Iroquois County, folks. We hate Adam Kinzinger, don't we, folks? Let me hear it. That's right. That's right.
Well, one more thing that you'd love about Iroquois County, I think we're within about 10 miles of the boyhood home of Patrick
Yes.
Kingston.
Oh, yeah.
Just straight
Well, and
south
Adam
of here,
Kinzinger
about
was
10
born
miles
here.
from his house.
In
And he's going to love this whole
Yeah.
attacking Adam part.
He was
I'm going to hear
trying to
about it
come.
for sure.
He texted me, and it was a day off when he was going to be coming through.
Poor guy's trying to do 16 different jobs.
I
All right,
know,
let's do
I know.
this. Let's close because we're overtime.
I got a
at the end-
clown.
Oh, you got a clown? Go ahead.
Yeah, our governor, what's his name?
What's his name? Pritzker?
When he was being interviewed by, was it Colbert? Is that how you say his name? All they talked about was hot dogs and how he ate his hot dog and what he wanted on his hot dog. And I just kept thinking, how many hot dogs have you eaten today? So,
See, I get in trouble for fat jokes, but you can do it.
I can do fat jokes.
I like it.
Yeah.
I always love, though, how if you're a Democrat, the media interviews like that are always puff pieces. But if it was Balkema there getting an interview, they'd be grilling him for, all the controversial issues. But Pritzker, it's, what do you like on your hot dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I remember was he does not use ketchup, only mustard. And anyway, but that's all they talked about for like 20 minutes was what he ate on his hot dog.
It must be nice being a Democrat.
Yeah. I guess.
All right, at the end of every episode, each of our participants gets a chance to close down with their final thoughts on any topic that they wish. So, Chris, I want to start with you. Close down with your final thoughts. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Iroquois County, for getting me away from the city of Chicago this week and away from the terrible, terrible Democratic National Convention. You've been a fantastic audience. The pork chops were fantastic. The rolls were also fantastic, as were the potato thing. I don't even know what it was, but the potatoes, I think they were fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful dinner here tonight. Thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
And it was all grown here, even the pork, because our Iroquois County pork producers cooked our pork chops. So
That's why
Give
they're
them a
so.
round of applause. That's great. All right, it seems like we've got this sort of rotating
Sure.
thing here. So, Susan, your final thoughts.
Well, I'm so excited that you guys get to come here to Iroquois County. We are the buckle of the Corn Belt.
Okay.
Even though we're number 2 next to Iowa, but someday we may get it back. We used to be number 1, but we're number 2, but not by much. But I've heard people call our area God's country, and myself, and I know a lot of people here, we don't want to live anywhere else. This is the most beautiful part of the state of Illinois. We're in the middle of nowhere, but we're close to everywhere, and we hope you guys come back and visit us again.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us. We'll go over here. Ashley, why don't you give us your final closing thoughts for the episode?
I'm very grateful for this opportunity, so thank you, and thank everybody who stuck it out with us. But more than anything, I want to implore the people of not just, Iroquois County, but across the state, please vote. Don't think that your vote doesn't count. Every vote counts. And if you can, be a poll watcher, be an election judge, come out and do the best that you can, because we appreciate it and it's important. It's vital now for not only the safety and security of our country, but the future generations of our country as well.
It's a great message to end on. Thank you for that. Mike, your final. Look at that. You're even getting a round of applause. Mike, your final thoughts.
Just keep it short. Honored to have been here tonight and participated in this. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
You're great to have you. Thanks so much.
Collin, Chris,
Our final person that gets to speak is always the one who brought the heat for that episode.
Oh, I love it.
Jason's
I
our
love
guy
it.
for
No,
that.
I would have bet on Mike. I've been in a lot of things with functions with him. He can bring the heat. He can bring the heat. So, Collin, Chris, and crew, thank you for coming down to Iroquois County. Thanks for coming to the 106th District. Please spend some money while you're down here on your way back into Chicago. But, I had said before in my remarks before we sat down here that, as a farmer and a Cubs fan, I'm a realist. And I know that we're not going to make the state of Illinois red, but we can make it purple. We've got 40 seats here in the House. We've got 19 seats in the Senate. We need to keep them numbers. We need to build them numbers. We need to get out of the super minority. We need to get closer to where some of these votes that we do and some of these votes that we push for matter. We've got to reach across the aisle. If we can raise our numbers, if we can vote Republican, get some more people there to help Senator Bennett, soon to be Senator Balcom, and myself, and Tipsord, and all my colleagues, the more Republican, solid-minded thinkers in Springfield, the better off we are. Thanks for coming.
Glad to have you, Jason. Thanks for being here. Give him another round of applause. As Michael would say if he was here with us, those of you who've watched Chris and Michael are on almost every episode, he'd say we've got a country to save, we've got a state to save. Illinois is worth fighting for. So thank you all so much, not just for watching this podcast, for those who are with us in person and those who are watching the recording, but thank you for everything you all do for the cause. This is a room full of Republicans, and you don't get the praise, so we could give you a round of applause.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you all for what you do. To our viewers, to our watchers, and even to those of you in the room, if you want to watch our podcast, check out the Smoke-Filled Room on YouTube and Spotify. We have at least one episode every week. We are thinking about doing a special episode next week, so you might get 2 episodes next week. I might kill my producer, giving him way too much work. But we got a lot to talk about in politics. It's election season, so make sure you're staying tuned on what's going on. Every week, we give you the latest issues, the latest things you can use at doorsteps as you try to convince swing voters to vote the right way come November. That's the point of our podcast, is to equip you with that information, with those tactics. So let us help you, so come November, we can go out there and actually win, because I like to win. With that, we'll say thank you all so much, and we'll catch you next week on the Smoke-Filled Room.